Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Alan Barry Labakan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. I had to do my weekend show on Monday. I got a little busy on the weekend. My beautiful daughter had a horse jumping competition. She won, so it was a great weekend. Well, anytime she does good, I'm always happy. But I really wanted to do this weekend show because I've got a lot of great stuff to talk about. I'm going to start out with some key topics that are bullish for gold. Then I'm going to do some updates on my pick list. And then I've got some companies with really good news out. So I'll get right into it. Um, the first topic I wanted to talk about is that in a recent show, I started by saying valuations don't matter until they matter, and then they matter a lot. We're seeing that not long after that show, they started to matter within a short period of time. We can see that in the AI stocks, the Mag 7, and other overvalued assets, including Bitcoin, that has fallen off a cliff. Although today it's recovered somewhat, I think there are some serious problems for Bitcoin that could see a lot of that money flowing back in, especially to the precious metal stocks. They have the kind of volatility that those Bitcoin people like. And one of the key factors is I think that the AI stocks, the AI industry could consume the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency industry because over a battle for energy. There's a lot more money in AI than there is in cryptocurrencies, and I think that will have them demanding more of the computing power in these data centers and win the race in the energy. So these are some pretty positive things. Now, the other side of that comment about valuations not mattering until they matter, and then they matter a lot, are the gold miners. They still haven't really started to price in the remarkable free cash flow that they're generating. And this is happening from the lowest cost gold miners to the high cost gold miners. So on one side of the coin, there are the AI stocks, the Mag 7 stocks, the tech stocks, and Bitcoin, which all have insane valuations relative to their fundamentals. I mean, a lot of them are priced for perfection, and I think there are reasons to believe that perfection is not coming. Look at just recently, they announced that the CPI, so the inflation numbers, there will not be any for October. The jobs, none for October. And now they announced that there will be no GDP numbers for the third quarter. So, the idea that the Fed cannot or won't raise interest rates at the next meeting and the next and the next and the next is off the table completely as far as I'm concerned. That will put pressure on the US dollar and be very bullish for commodities that are priced in the US dollar. An example that I use about how the valuations having not mattered yet to the gold mining, I look at my top pick for the major gold miners, which is Agnico Eagle. Now, I picked them in the first quarter of 2024 when in Canadian dollars they were trading at about $60. Today they're trading at $240. And although the stock has risen fourfold since then, on a free cash flow basis, they're cheaper now than they were when they had a much cheaper share price. You look at the multiple back then, it was somewhere around 30 times free cash flow. Now they could be trading at 15 times free cash flow for 2025. And so, even though the stock has gone up a lot, on a valuation perspective, using free cash flow as the basis, they're still extremely cheap. And this is happening throughout the food chain of gold miners, including the majors, the mid tiers, and the junior gold miners. Now, of course, the major gold miners will get a lot more attention than the mid tiers, and the mid tiers will get more attention, but from the than the will get more attention than the junior gold miners, but nonetheless, they're all making a lot of money. The average cost of producing an ounce of gold by the mid tiers and the majors is about $1,500 an ounce. And, even the highest cost producers are producing gold for about $2,500 an ounce. So with gold at $4,100 an ounce, that's a tremendous amount of free cash flow. But they are trading much more like gold is still under $2,500 an ounce and have not priced in the current price of gold and certainly haven't started to price in the much higher gold prices I see coming in 2026 and beyond. The same can be said for the developers with high quality projects and explorers with important discoveries. They're still being priced for gold in the ground like they were when gold was around half or less of its current price. The entire food chain of gold stocks is ripe for massive re ratings to the upside. And this gets back to my point about valuations. When they're overvalued, they don't matter until they matter. And the same thing is when they're undervalued, they don't matter until they matter. And then they take off and you got to start chasing them. Uh, a key reason for that argument is that although the gold stocks are suggesting gold as depicted by the valuations, that gold in the ground or being mined is worth much less than it is, the price of gold is primed to go much higher. So not only do I think that the valuation of gold is undervalued relative to the broken debt and fiat currency system and the death spiral of debt, cost of servicing the debt, stagflation. Now, with all these reports that they're not going to put out, it suggests that the Fed is going to continue this process of throwing inflation under the bus because the jobs and the economy are too weak. And so as they do that, it's like a pendulum. One side of the pendulum goes one way, the other side goes the other. And uh, this is very bullish for gold. Gold has set a series of new record highs throughout 2024 and 2025. But to get a sense of where it is going requires one to look at the drivers. One is the death spiral of debt. It is getting much worse, partially because the politicians in the left and right are spending in debt junkies, and that hasn't changed. Equally alarming is the unsustainable cost of servicing the debt. This is a ticking time bomb. Um, Fiat currency, as I said, the fiat currency system and the debt are broken, causing the central bankers to own more gold than US debt now. Think about that. They own more gold than they do US debt. And what this all comes down to is a revival of the gold standard, which is in motion. I don't know if there will ever come a time that they officially call it that, but that's effectively what's happening. And because gold is the soundest money, and I think it has a lot higher to go because when you look at the amount of debt that's out there in the world, it currently stands at about 330 trillion. The value of all the gold, which by the way is not owned in all by the central bankers, the consumers in China and India own a lot of that will never come into the market. But using the value of gold it's still less than 10% of the global government debt, and that's not including your unfunded liabilities or the debt of the individuals. When you take it all into context, the world is awash in debt and commitments for the future that will only make that debt get much worse. And therefore, that's why in 2024, I said that I think we'll see $10,000 per or $20,000 per ounce of gold within 10 years. And I think it's right on schedule. Another contributing factor, well, there's two. I already described the longer term, what helped this chart look so beautiful in gold. But contributing factors that are now in play are stagflation, as well as the problems with this reporting and the independence of the Fed, which is going out the door when Trump gets his new guy in there after the next four meetings by Powell. He's going to even amp that up even more, and I think ultimately will lead to back to the free money era. Another contributing factor that I don't think gets a lot of attention is the supply side of the story for gold, silver, and copper. When you look at gold, it's as the record prices are being put in, the production is flatlining and about to start declining. It probably already has started somewhat of the decline. It's certainly not growing, which is, economics 101 tells you that when the price of a commodity goes up, the production will as well, which is certainly not happening with gold. Then you look at silver, and the story is even more compelling. For the last 4 or 5 years, there's been on average about a 200 million ounce production shortfall from the demand, which is primarily affected by the demand that's coming from solar panels. And that's only going to grow because in a lot of places, like where I live in Mexico, solar energy is very, very important, and it's a quick way to get energy. And then if you use batteries, you need all those metals as well. And so supply is also very bullish. The supply demand equation is very bullish for gold, silver. And another that is not getting a lot of attention, but I think you're going to hear a lot about in 2026 is the copper deficit. Some are predicting 500,000 tons of supply shortfall in 2026. I've heard even up to 1 million tons in 2026, and it stays a deficit for many years into the future. And now you've got the AI coming on stream in a big way, which will keep growing. And even despite the circular accounting that's going on there, there is a big business coming up in AI. One day they'll figure out how to make money off of it other than doing circular investments in this company, and that company buys it back, buys the products back from that company. But at some point in the time in the future, probably 3 to 5 years from now, companies are going to start figuring out how to make a lot of money off of that. Which, as I said earlier, I think is going to put a lot of pressure on the Bitcoin crypto industry because both the AI and the crypto, they need energy and they need these data centers, and they're pretty much interchangeable. And so as AI grows, it's going to consume a lot more copper, but it's also going to put pressure on those data centers because where Bitcoin is today, a lot of miners are underwater and they're needing to increase their debt. And if the mining goes under, that's the whole technological backbone of Bitcoin, and other cryptocurrencies. So I see a lot of exciting things happening for copper. So my metals that I follow very closely with my picks are gold, silver, and copper. And I think they're all going to be firing on all cylinders in 2026. And just to wrap up this intro, valuations are starting to matter for the AI stocks, the Mag 7 stocks, big tech stocks, and Bitcoin. And I think that's going to continue to matter because now it looks like the yen carry trade is hitting some rough waters. And that brings a lot of liquidity into those kind of assets. And so I think that we're going to start to see it reach the gold miners and the silver miners and the copper miners because they're actually making incredible free cash flow. And yet, that free cash flow is still being dramatically undervalued. And I don't think it's going to be very long before the valuations in the miners, precious and base metals, start to matter. Uh, and that's why I have a group of companies along the food chain in gold, silver, and copper. And that's the story there. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about some of my key picks. One of my recent picks is a special situation pick, have to say that slowly, which is Earth Labs Inc. Why I like this company so much is they've got a combination of having digital marketing assets and platforms like CEO.ca, mining.com, the Northern Miner. And a fundamental problem that I've seen in the mining industry is a lot of the managers of these companies are still what I say is caught in the fax machine era. They haven't really come into the digital marketing era. And when they do, a company like Earth Labs that has these great digital marketing platforms is going to get a lot more attention. And the basics behind the business plan of Earth Labs is that on one side of the business, they have these digital marketing assets, which are kind of like you've heard the comment before about during the great gold rushes that the picks and shovels companies made a lot more money than the miners did. And so in our modern era, the digital marketing is the equivalent of the picks and shovels kind of businesses. And so the idea is that that will look after the operations of the company, running the company, having it as a publicly listed company, having it staffed, will be looked after through the digital marketing assets. And then they've also got they've got a venture capital business as well, where they invest in they invest in primarily junior gold miners or junior exploration companies in precious and base metals, mainly like me, silver, gold, and copper, and some developers. And recently, it took them a couple of years of positioning themselves into the right companies to start to play out into their quarterly reports. And in their last quarterly report, they reported that their profit or their increase in their portfolio had went up 2,300% year over year. And that reflects a couple of important things for me. One is that it tells you that they position themselves well for things to get more bullish for down the food chain in the mining stocks. Secondly, it is telling you that the mining stocks are, especially the good ones like these guys invest in, are starting to get a lot more attention. Okay. And, so that gain, that doesn't go away. That 2,300% gain doesn't go away. I think it only gets better. And how I've described the value proposition for this company is the price that they're currently being valued at is, let's say you're kind of like buying a dollar's worth of value for about 35 or 40 cents. And if that alone would be a strong argument for me to get bullish on the company. But what I actually think is going to happen is you're going to start to see that $1 turn into two, $3. And so that makes it even more of an attractive value proposition. So I invite you to check out Earth Labs. Okay. So quick updates on my unicorn picks. Now, unicorn picks for me are companies that have special projects that can help them grow into much larger companies in a fashion like how it's used in the tech sector. In the tech sector, when companies have big success, they're called unicorns. Okay. And so I have a group of unicorns. I have one in silver, one in copper, and two in gold. On the silver side of things, it is Vizla Silver. And I'm going to be talking about Vizla in the final segment of this show, which is the news release section. So I won't go into a lot more about Vizla Silver, but the bottom line is they have a phenomenal project. And for silver, high grade, very low cost, low capex to bring it into production. And I think that is ultimately going to help them turn into a much larger company. I'm grateful to have them as a sponsor of my reports. The sponsors, they make it possible for me to do the work that I do and not charge my audience for it. Another of my unicorn picks is McEwen Inc. McEwen Inc. has one of the most important undeveloped copper projects anywhere in the world. And why that's so important, it is in the top 10 of undeveloped copper projects in the world. It has they just did a feasibility study, and in that feasibility study, they showed that the Los Azules project has around $2.11 per pound, all in sustaining costs to produce it. And we're looking at copper trading at about $3 more than that per year. And they're going to be producing about 400,000 pounds per year. So that equates to, you're talking about over $1 billion in free cash flow when they get it into production in the next few years. And so McEwen Inc. has a tremendous copper project. It's in the top 10 of undeveloped copper projects and is also in the lowest cost quartile. And why I say that it is a unicorn project is most of the projects that are in that top 10 are owned by major mining companies. They're not owned by a junior like McEwen Inc. And so having a project, let's say, of a major's quality inside of a junior is why I think it has the potential to be a unicorn pick or a unicorn performer, if you will, going forward. Another of my picks where I'm a shareholder is Goliath Resources. They have a phenomenal high-grade gold discovery in the Golden Triangle of British Columbia, which is well known for having very exceptional mines. And I think they have one of those of the future. I'm going to be talking about their recent news in the news segment of the show. So I'll talk about them more in a little while. Amex Exploration has a phenomenal gold development project in Quebec. Quebec is one of the best mining jurisdictions anywhere in the world, and they have a spectacular project. Close to, well, 800 and let's say 850,000 ounces of their resources in the high grade category, which would be an underground mine with an average grade of 16.2 grams per ton of gold. You do not find those very often anymore. And also in that same zone that they call the Champagne zone, it has another couple 100,000 ounces or 150,000 ounces with an average grade of 10 grams per ton of gold. Either one of those numbers are hard to find these days. So it's a high grade, that would be the starter. And then they also have satellite zones around it in very close proximity. And the overall resource is over 2.5 million ounces. Everything is open. And I think they've got the ability and potential to grow those resources very significantly while also moving towards a near-term production scenario. And so it's a very special project. I'm lucky to have them as a sponsor of my reports because, like I said with Vizla, I think that they've got the kind of project that can be a huge winner for a small company like an Amex Exploration. And I invite you to do your homework on that. So then I've got another group of companies that I call my top of mind picks. These are companies that I follow very closely, and they're doing a bunch of work. And I think they've got exceptional projects that will launch them into big successes. One of those is Sokoman Minerals. Sokoman Minerals has a project called Moosehead in Newfoundland. And this is a very high grade orogenic gold system not very far from one of my mid-tier picks, which is called Equinox, who's developing the Valentine Lake mine. Now, what's special about the Valentine Lake mine is it's a 5 million ounce resource and reserves that are growing, and it's along what is called the Valentine Lake Shear Zone. These are big cracks in the earth that the fluids that carry the gold make their way up. Okay. And so if you go down that Valentine Lake shear not very far, you run into Sokoman's ground, and they've got a big portion of that Valentine Lake shear zone. And there's been drilling in the past that found a lot of high grade gold. And recently they went through a management change and they brought some real experienced and highly talented geologists and onto the team led by Denny Laviolette. And Denny Laviolette is a super talented geologist who's not just great at doing the exploration work, but he's also a big picture thinker. And I hope to have him on one of my shows in the not too distant future, probably when they start announcing that drilling is underway, which I think is within the next week to 10 days or so. So I'll work to get Denny Laviolette on a show. But he basically, Denny is so talented. He could have got a job at any major mining company, mid-tier, junior, and he chose to run Sokoman. And I think Sokoman has a very bright future. So check them out. Sterling Metals has a spectacular new high-grade copper discovery in Ontario, near Batchewana Bay, Ontario. I've done a lot of homework on their project over the last couple of years, and their recent results really broke the story. I forgot to look at my stocks. Um, okay, hold on. Before I talk about Sterling, let me just quickly do a quick blast through the stocks that I already talked about. One of them is Gold Spot here. I need to clean this up. These people at stock charts, they put too many indicators on these things for me. I like to keep it simple, and so I'm going to get rid of these. secondary indicators. My primary indicators are the stock's movement, the stocks and the 50-day and 200-day moving averages. And here is gold spot. And as you can see, they've recently broken out quite significantly, and that is due to the quarterly report that they just put out, where they announced that they had a 2,300% gain on their portfolio of assets, while also increasing their revenue from their digital marketing platforms. And so they've got a very bright future. Their positioning in really great stocks over the last couple of years is really starting to pay off, and they own strong positions in a lot of really good juniors. And I think you're going to see great things out of this company. So that's the gold spot. Vizla, well, I'm going to talk about Vizla in the news section, so I'll remember to bring them up then. McEwen Inc. Let's take a look at McEwen Inc. There it is. And I always do the Toronto, being a Canadian guy. I like to talk in Canadian dollars. And as you can see, they went through a golden cross here. And since then, the stock has pretty much traded well above the 50-day moving average. Of late, as the mining stocks have sort of come back after a big run due to what's happened in gold and silver prices, a lot of the mining stocks have come off. They're now trading right on that 50-day moving average. But with what's driving this action on the 50-day moving average is the quality of their Los Azules copper development project in Argentina and all the great news that they've got coming out of that. And as you can see, the 50-day is quite significantly above the 200-day, and the 200-day is getting into a very bullish scenario as well. So I think that this one has a lot of blue sky ahead of it. Goliath, I'm going to talk about Goliath in the news section, so I'll bring their stock chart up then. Amex, I already talked about them. Here's their stock chart. As you can see, they went through a golden cross in June, have traded beautifully above the 50-day moving average. They dipped down to it recently, as a lot of the mining stocks have, but now they're trading above it again. And this sideways action is very bullish. When a lot of the stocks have been getting are significantly cheaper than they were when they peaked out. And so I think that's reflective of the quality of their project. Sokoman, I already talked about Sokoman, but I didn't bring up their stock chart, so I will right now. And this tells a lot of story. I already mentioned Denis Laviolette. Well, this run from here to here was when Denis Laviolette was reported as the new CEO. And then they peaked out, they came back. They've been trading sideways as they've been doing a private placement to raise about $24 million to get them loaded up with cash for their upcoming drilling that should start in the next week, 10 days, I hope. And so, yeah, it's an extremely bullish golden cross here as the 50-day blasted through the 200-day is on a very bullish trajectory, as is the 200-day. Whether I look at this company from a technical perspective or what's happening with the management and the work that they're about to get underway, I think there are many reasons to be bullish on the company, which is why I am a significant shareholder. Okay, I forgot earlier when before I started talking about sterling metals. I'll resume that talk about sterling metals and put it into context. This big move here was when they announced a spectacular drill results from their new discovery in Ontario near the town of Batchewana Bay. As I said earlier, I've done a lot of homework on their project. It's a very large land package, and it has all the right ingredients to make an important discovery. And I believe that they are going to be one of the fastest companies that have gone from when I've made them an exploration pick to making them an explorer with an important discovery. It's high grade copper. They've got all the right indicators that they should have more of it. I'm very bullish about all this. They're also doing, I think it's around a $14 million finance, and that's why they've kind of been going sideways. But I find it very bullish when I see a company, let's say they started here at about 30 cents and they almost 10x in a couple of months. Okay. And after I see a run like that, I always look at the profit taking afterwards. And you can see that they maintained a lot of that big move. And that tells me that the shareholders of the company, of which I'm one, are very they're bought in to the big discovery potential, and they're not interested in taking profits here. And the company doesn't have very much stock out, and they're about once they close that financing, then they'll have get ready for drilling, and in the interim, they've also got pending assay results. So a lot of good things happening for Sterling. Another company that's in the exploration for both precious and base metals is Kirkland Lake Discoveries. I'm a shareholder of Kirkland Lake Discoveries. They made a golden cross back here when they started drilling on their large land package near the town of Kirkland Lake, Ontario. Kirkland Lake is one of these, as they say, elephant countries because there's so many big mines around there. And this project had kind of got overlooked for a long period of time, many decades. And now the Kirkland Lake Discoveries team is going in there. They've gone in there with a different geological model. And in their first round of drilling, they had excellent results for both high grade copper as well as gold discoveries. And that is what propelled their stock up quite significantly. Now they are starting, as we speak, a 25,000-meter drill program, and they're really planning to roll their sleeves up and get drilling in a significant way over the next few months. That's going to start anytime now. They'll probably have to shut her down for a couple of weeks during Christmas, but then in the new year they'll be right back at it. It's got all the geological hallmarks of the great mines in the Kirkland Lake area. And I think you're going to hear a lot about Kirkland Lake discoveries in the not too distant future. All right. Another of my top of mind picks is Borealis. Borealis is a very interesting company because they're a brand new junior gold miner starting up in Nevada. There are none of those out there these days other than Borealis. Now, how they started out was they have a fully permitted mine, and with all the infrastructure as well as the processing plant to extract the gold and create doré bars on their property through what's called an ADR plant. And they started out by processing an unprocessed heap, or not heap, stockpile that will keep them busy over the next couple of months. And come January, they're going to be starting to take material out of the known pits and start putting that through the processing method. And this has them in a staged way to grow into a junior gold miner focused in Nevada on projects that are low cost and high margin projects. They're kind of following that method, if you will, that a lot of junior gold miners built were built upon. Even Barrick was built upon this, where they started out small and grew and grew and grew. Now, another important factor about this company is that their chairman is Bob Buchan. And Bob Buchan was the founder of Kinross. And Kinross, during his tenure, had its greatest growth ever and reached a price that they still are not at today, even though gold is trading at $4,100 an ounce. So Bob Buchan knows how to build these kind of companies. Kelly Malcolm is the CEO. He's a very talented geologist. And Kelly and the team, they've got a very strong team. Their mine builder and operator cut his teeth at the Detour Lake mine. And he was also instrumental in with the Cote mine in Canada, which is another of Canada's great new mines. And so they've got a rock star team. They got a rock star roster of shareholders that includes Rob McEwen as their number one shareholder. He owns, I think, around 14 or 15% of the company. Then Eric Sprott, who's a billionaire mine investor. He's also, I think he owns around 10%. They've got other important shareholders. I'm super happy to have them as a sponsor, and I'm a shareholder of the company. And yeah, I think Borealis is another one you can take a look at. I'm quickly going to go through who my major picks are. As my long-term viewers know, Agnico Eagle has been my top pick for major gold miners since the early part of 2024. They've done exceptionally well. I talked about them in the opening of this show. Oh, I just keep on forgetting to bring my stock charts up here. Sorry about that, folks. I know everybody likes me to do that, so I will. So I picked them back here when they were about $60 a share. And as you can see, they've gone up about 4x. And the reason for that is they're the most talented major gold miner when it comes to operating gold mines profitably. They've made a series of record free cash flow quarters. And Yeah, Agnico Eagle is even though as I said earlier, even though they've moved up a lot, when you look at them on a valuation basis relative to their free cash flow and the multiple they're trading on that free cash flow, they are cheaper now than when I first picked them at $60 a share. And that's shocking to me because I thought if gold went up that much, the gold stocks would start to price in at least the current price. But I still believe that these companies are being priced like gold was about $2,500 an ounce. This value proposition that I mentioned about Agnico Eagle a couple times now is a perfect example of that. And so Agnico is one of my major gold miners. The other one, I only have two that are majors in gold, is Newmont. And Newmont, I picked them just before they went through their golden cross down here at about $45 per ounce. Since then, they've went through a golden cross and have done extremely well. They've really made a significant turnaround. They sold off all their tier two mines to focus on optimizing their tier one mines. And although they're producing less gold than they did, let's say, a year ago, they're making more in free cash flow. And that's a combination of the price of gold, maintaining their costs, keeping good controls on their costs, and optimizing their tier one mines. And so I'm very bullish on Newmont. Another contributing factor that I like is that as investors, generalist investors get more interested in the gold miners, Newmont is a top of mind company for generalist investors. When they think of gold miners, they think of Newmont. And so if Newmont is doing well, because they are about 12% of the GDX, which is the major miners or the big miners ETF, that's another that they think about, generalists. I think they look at Newmont and then they look at the GDX, and if they're both going up, they get a good attitude, a bullish outlook on the gold miners and the mid tiers and the juniors and the developers and the explorers. And so I think Newmont doing well is good for the entire food chain. And I'm really happy to say that I think they are doing well since I made them a pick, and I think they will continue to do very well. Now, Pan American Silver, I picked them. I think that they're up about 30% or so since I picked them, or 40%, somewhere in there. But I didn't pick them because I thought that they would do well in the short term. Why I picked them is because as silver starts to set a series of record highs, I think that Pan American silver will significantly outperform the movement in the price of silver, similar to how Agnico Eagle substantially outperformed gold's movement up to 5 or 6x the performance. I think that this Pan American silver will do the same thing when silver starts making a series of record highs. It's already started, and I think we're going to see a lot more record highs out of silver. And therefore, Pan American Silver is a top of mind uh, company when generalist investors think about silver miners. So I think Pan American Silver has a very bright future. Now, core mining is one that I picked because I'm really positive about the recent acquisitions that they've done. Now, as is often the case, after an acquisition, they can come down, but I didn't pick them for the short-term performance. I think that the combination of the acquisition that they've done to buy already about a year and a half ago, they bought out Las Chispas from Silvercrest. They bought Silvercrest, and Las Chispas is one of the great new high grade, high margin mines anywhere in the world. So they bought that. They also recently bought the names escapes me at the moment. It's New Gold. They recently made an offer to buy New Gold, and I think the combination of their Rochester mine, their other mines, the Las Chispas mine, and what they're getting from New Gold is the value driver going forward. So although it's trading somewhat below its 50-day moving average, I think it's primed to go much higher. That's why I got Core as a pick in my majors. Now, on my mid tiers, Alamos Gold, I think of it kind of like, oh, this is the New York exchange, and this is in U.S. dollars. I picked them back here when they were trading at about $11 a share. They've significantly outperformed the movement in gold. But what has me so bullish about Agni or Alamos is they've been taking all of their free cash flow and putting it into new mines. Now, those new mines will help them almost double their production to become a 1 million ounce per year gold miner. But what is also important is as they're dramatically increasing their production, they're also decreasing their cost of production. Right now, the average miner, gold miner, produces gold for about, let's say, $1,550 per ounce. They're going to be bringing that down to about $1,200 per ounce as they dramatically increase their production. So they're already a very good free cash flow generator, and I think you're going to see that go up dramatically in 2026. So they're taking their free cash flow to grow their free cash flow at a much more substantial rate, even if gold went sideways for all of 2026. And I think it's going to go much higher during 2026 into a new series of record highs, much like it did in 2025. And so Alamos is one of my mid tiers. Another is Aris Mining. And why I like Aris Mining so much is they are also a low cost producer with high margins. And as you can see, over the last couple of years, they've moved up quite dramatically. They're another one that I picked somewhere before they went into their Golden Cross. Since then, they've done very well. As you can see, almost that entire time, except for a very short period in the summer and a very short period recently at the 50-day. Most of that has been above the 50-day moving average, and they're now making new all-time highs. So I think they're relatively outperforming a lot of their peers. And look at the bullish trajectory on the 50-day and the 200-day. This company has a very good future. Actually, I'm going to be talking about some of their recent news shortly, so pay attention to that. Another of my mid tiers is Equinox. Equinox has a very exciting combination of things going on for them. They were kind of flatlining, and then they brought in Darren Hall to take over the development, the bringing the Greenstone mine in Ontario into full commercial production. At the same time, which is no small feat, by the way, they've also started commercial production at their Valentine Lake mine. Darren Hall is a very talented miner, had experience with the majors, really knows how to build mines, and they've been doing very well. Look at the relative strength in this one. After Darren Hall took over, they basically spent almost the entire time significantly above the 50-day moving average. The reason the trajectory of the 50-day and 200-day moving averages are so impressive is because both the Greenstone mine and the Valentine Lake mine will be in full commercial production in 2026. And so that gets them over their 1 million ounce production, annual production. And very well run company. Darren Hall is an extremely talented miner. And I think that's another one you want to take a look at. Now, Orla has a very bright future as well. I started picking this company, oh, probably way back in 2020 when they were bringing their Camino Rojo project in production. And they didn't get a lot of love in 21, 22, 23, and for half of 2024. But then they really started getting some love. And a lot of that has to do with a combination of how things are performing at their Camino Rojo mine. Plus, they bought the Porcupine mine from Newmont or sorry, not Porcupine, Musselwhite. They brought Musselwhite from Newmont, which was one of Newmont's tier two mines. But for a company like Orla, a tier two project for Newmont is a tier one project for a mid tier. And so they got that asset. And then um, they've also got another mine that is a development stage project in Nevada. And so they've got a very good pipeline. They're doing great exploration work at Musselwhite. They recently, that mine has been in production for 28 years. They did some big step outs, 2 kilometers along strike of where the mining is all happening. And they got great results 2 kilometers away. So who knows? That thing could be in production for another couple decades. And so great group of assets for the company. I got a lot of good things to say about Orla. They've kind of been going sideways over the last few months as they've been integrating and doing all this work at Musselwhite. And so I think that they're about to start a breakout from this sideways action. And that's another one you want to take a look at. Okay. So I have junior gold miners, I have developers, I have gold explorers with important high-grade discoveries, I have my explorers. I'm not going to be able to get into all of those, but look in the description of this video and you'll find my entire list in the description. So you can do your homework on all of those companies. And as they have news, that's when I talk about those as well. Speaking of companies with recent news, let's start out with Heliostar, who just had this great news release out earlier today. Heliostar drills 83 meters, grading 17.35 grams per ton of gold from 76 meters below the surface and expands program to 20,000 meters. I said to somebody earlier today, this is why I focus on high quality projects because they tend to have a lot of pleasant surprises along the way. And this is a perfect example. I mean, that's a half an ounce per ton of gold over 83 meters that starts very close to the surface. But that wasn't their only grade hole. Inside of that hole, it had 46 meters, grading 27.35 grams per ton of gold from 88.95 meters. So, what that tells you, folks, is that you're looking at almost an ounce of gold starting 89 meters below the surface. There was also a 70-meter hole grading 9.38 grams per ton of gold, which is phenomenal as well. 92 meters of 4.33 grams per ton of gold. That's fantastic stuff, folks. At today's price, that's like $500 per ton of gold in over 92 meters. 65 meters of 5.3. So now you're looking at about $600 per ton of gold in the ground. Anapaula drill program to be extended to 23 meters, 20,000 meters of drilling. Their CEO, he always makes good quotes, so I'm gonna scroll down. Look at all this beautiful high grade, and these recently holes are way up here, right by the surface. So they've got great material to mine when they get their permit. I think they're gearing up. They think they're going to bring it into production in about 2027. So just a couple years down the road for high grade gold production. Where is the quote? Charles Funk, he always does good quotes. I can't believe he wouldn't do. Maybe he thought these results would speak for themselves. No, here's the quote. Charles Funk, who's the CEO, stated, and I quote, "It's rare to find a deposit that consistently produces 50 to 100-meter wide drill intercepts of these gold grades. Ana Paula is wide, high grade, and shallow with good underground mining conditions. These factors drive the low $1,011 all-in sustaining cost in our new PEA for the project. It will also drive high margins at the project. The current program is focused on upgrading inferred ounces to higher confidence categories, and the new data will be incorporated into a feasibility study. The lower costs drive a lower cutoff grade in the planned mine that opens the potential for more inferred material conversion. To maximize this opportunity, we will expand the program by 33% to 20,000 meters to allow for more infill and exploration drilling at Ana Paula. Across the company, we have another study, a pre-feasibility study for Cerro de Gallo planned this quarter. We're also drilling at San Augustine and La Colorada. These programs should increase production and unlock the value we see in our deep growth portfolio. I don't need to add much more. Charles did a great job of describing everything they're working on. And it's an not an it's not an overstatement to say that it's rare to find a deposit that consistently produces 50 to 100-meter wide drill intercepts of these gold grades. It is very rare to find those kind of deposits these days, and Heliostar has one. And let's just quickly take a look at their stock price today. The market liked the news quite significantly. Let me get their HSTR. Hold on a second here. What's going on? Why is this not cooperating with me? There it is. Heliostar. Okay, so as you can see, as they started producing from their mines and have had great results, today they were up 12.62% to do $2.32. I originally started covering this company at about a buck and a half, somewhere in here. Really happy with the results. And this is an example of you don't need to be the lowest buyer to have great success. It's finding value that's not being properly priced relative to the quality of their projects. And I think that Heliostar falls into that category in spades. And I'm really excited about the prospects of them developing the Ana Paula mine into production. And I think that that will help them grow into a mid-tier and beyond. So that's the Heliostar story. Vizla Silver. Vizla announces closing of a $300 million US convertible senior notes offering. Now, recently they did a deal that was going to bring them about 250 million, but there were some strings attached to that they weren't particularly excited about. And this opportunity came along so that they could replace that one with this US $300 million convertible senior notes offering. The fact of that they already have a couple $100 million in the bank and now add 300 million on top of that, and their cost to bring their mine into production is about 225 million, speaks volumes about the quality of the project. They announced the closing of its previously announced offering of a 5% convertible senior unsecured notes due in 2031 for an aggregate principal amount of 300 million, which includes the exercise in full by the initial purchasers of their option to purchase an additional 50 million of the notes. So originally it was going to be 250 million, but with the over allotment, it brought it up to 300 million. Michael Connard, who's the CEO, he stated, and I quote, Vizla Silver greatly appreciates the strong support from a global institutional investor base for this offering, is proud to welcome a new group of investors to Vizla Silver, including many of the world's largest asset managers. In connection with this US style convertible notes offering, we have also entered into cash settled cap call transactions that are expected generally to compensate through the payment of cash to the company for potential economic dilution upon conversion of the notes and or offset any cash payments that the company could be required to make in excess of the principal amount of any notes upon conversion thereof, as the case may be. With such compensation and or offset subject to a cap, while we elected to maintain flexibility for our settlement options at this time, we have the ability to settle all or a portion of our conversion obligation in cash, which allow us to potentially decrease shareholder dilution upon conversion of the notes. In addition, The note's coupon reduces our previously expected debt service obligations during the expected construction and commissioning phase of the Panuco project, and the unsecured covenant light structure provides us with greater flexibility as we move towards developing Panuco while undertaking an aggressive exploration program across our portfolio. With an annual coupon of 5%, the notes alone carry an interest rate that is 50% lower than the annual interest rate on many traditional project financing facilities. The net proceeds from the offering, combined with Vizla Silver's strong pre-offering cash position, I believe place the company in a strong financial position to pursue the development of our Panuco project, continue extensive exploration across our portfolio, and consider future growth strategic opportunities. End quote. So as I said, the previous one that they were going to do with another firm is replaced with this one on much better terms. And they go across, they give you a lot more details about this, and I'll leave that for you to read. Um, but yeah, the Panuco project is a real company maker. It will allow them to become, I think, the next important major silver miner. And there's not very many of those kind of opportunities out there in the silver space. And I think you should take a look at Vizla. Let's take a look at their stock, VZLA. Um, this is, let's do the Toronto listing because I like to talk in Canadian dollars. I can't find it, so we'll do the Amex listing. This is in US dollars. So as you can see, they had their golden cross back in early 2024, have done very well since then, and that's all based on the quality of their Panuco mine development project. And it's got spectacular economics. In a preliminary economic assessment, they're working on a feasibility study, doing a underground mining in a bulk sample scenario. That will give them a jump start on their production because that will be stockpiled and the first material moved into the plant once they get that built. Plus, it gives them an underground workings that are of production standards. So it gets them into the mine early in being done while they're doing this bulk sampling. So have a look at Vizla. Next up is Goliath. Goliath drills several holes of high-grade gold up to 10.25 grams per ton of gold over 7.02 meters, within 5.2 grams per ton of gold over 15 meters from 281 to 296 down hole. Now, it's important to remember that when they talk about the down hole, this is actually on the side of a mountain. So you would be able, or the plan is, or the tentative plan, if you will, is to go in there from the side of the mountain. So, now you're only going 50 meters or so to get into this kind of material. They gave a bunch of the visible gold from their from their drilling of 80 holes this year. 62 of those include visible gold to the naked eye. And look at all of this visible gold in their drilling, in their past drilling, just loaded up with visible gold. There's actually more visible gold in this one. Really beautiful looking stuff. Um, and another group of visible gold. Have a look at that in your in the news release. It's a lot of visible gold. And how I often describe this is this map here really shows you. Well, first I'll go to this map. Let me start with this one um, down here. So. This map, it shows you all where in their drilling over the last few years, where all the visible gold is in the drill holes. Okay. And you can see a real concentration here, but that's really related to the amount of drilling in these. When you got a lot of visible gold, you're poking a hole, 3 inch diameter hole through a ton of rock, and you got a piece of visible gold. You need density of drilling to really realize how much gold is in there. And if you look at this sort of corridor inside of here, just a phenomenal amount of visible gold. And even up here where you have less drill density, still a spectacular amount of gold. Same thing that can be said over here and even over here on the eastern or western side. I think that's western direction am I looking at here? Yeah, that's the western side. And so now you know, when you look at a project like this, another important thing to look at is here is a zoomed in portion of just one of these areas where they have found all that visible gold. Look at all the visible gold throughout the drilling into these zones. It's just phenomenal. Here is another map that shows how much the distribution of visible gold. You just do not find these kind of projects very often, folks. The last one I think that is a good comparable is the Pogo mine in Alaska, and it also has some of the characteristics such as these lying stacked veins that make up these zones. And I always point out that one series goes in this direction and another series goes in this direction. And they haven't done much drilling underneath to find the extension of this series of stacked veins. And they haven't stepped out over here to this series of stacked veins either. But what stands out to me is not just the phenomenal amount of visible gold that has been modeled in these stacked veins, but that one series goes towards the west and the other series goes towards the east. And this suggests that there are two sources of where that gold is coming from. Would be way over here, and another would be way over here. And if you sort of, just as the crow flies, if you will, that could be 4,000 meters apart. Then the question becomes, well, what's underneath all of this? Um, because I'm going to go back to this map. That's a good question to ask because a lot of this, you can see the extent of they haven't cut this off at depth or along strike or even, all over the deposits. But they also have a series of vertical dikes called reduced intrusion related gold systems that come up vertically. And so that suggests that there could be something where the visible gold is coming from under here and then over here and over here. And are they all part of the same big magma chamber underneath? That answer could be 200 or 300 meters below here, where you keep on extending these stacked veins and then find the source of what all of it's coming from. So this is why I call this a unicorn exploration project. And yeah, have a look at Goliath. Take a look at all that beautiful visible gold. That kind of stuff is what gets a gold exploration guy excited and a big smile on his face. Okay, next up is, let's take a look at their stock chart before I move on to the next company. Here is Goliath. As you can see, since about first quarter 2023, they were trading down around 52 cents, closed today at $2.86. Had a great run when they announced their best hole ever. in early 2025 from their 2024 summer drill program. Trended up nicely, came back with a lot of the gold stocks, but I think this one has a great future ahead of it. I think they've got a high-grade gold mine there that will be developed by either a major that buys them out or a major that partners up with them. As I said, you just do not find projects with that much and widespread visible gold like they have at Goliath. Okay, Equinox. Equinox Gold achieves commercial production at the Valentine Gold Mine, driving Canadian gold production growth into 2026. Darren Hall, who's the CEO of Equinox, commented, and I quote, achieving commercial production at Valentine marks an important milestone as we expand our Canadian operations. The operation is performing well with plant availability, throughput, and recoveries exceeding commissioning period expectations. I'm incredibly proud of the team for responsibly and efficiently ramping up production ahead of schedule. For the last 60 days, the Valentine process plant averaged 5,451 tons per day, representing 80% of nameplate capacity of 6,850 tons per day, with gold recovery averaging over 93% on lower grade commissioning feed of 1.2 grams per ton of gold. Valentine is expected to deliver into the higher end of our Q4 production range of 15,000 to 30,000 ounces of gold. With the ramp up firmly on track, I anticipate Valentine will reach nameplate capacity by Q2 2026, resulting in 150 to 200,000 ounces of gold produced in 2026. Concurrently, we are advancing phase two studies that could increase mill throughput to 5 million tons per year, doubling the current nameplate capacity and up from 4 million tons in 2022 feasibility study. And while they're doing that, getting something into production ahead of schedule and under budget, they're also building the production up to full capacity at the Greenstone mine. And so, really well run development of two great new Canadian gold mines. I got a lot of great things to say about Darren Hall and Equinox and their future. And let's take a look at their stock. So as you can see, great breakout here to do with the Greenstone mine development and Valentine Lake. And yeah, I expect more of the same for them going forward. All right, Foran Mining is another of my pre-production stories. I love finding these that are late in their development, just before they turn into producers. That's called the sweet spot of the right side of the Lassonde curve. Pierre Lassonde's a key shareholder of this company, as is Agnico Eagle Mines. Agnico Eagle is my top major gold miner. One of their great mines is very similar geologically to what Foran is developing. And, you know, they've done a lot of your homework for you folks, but they talked about Foran Advances development at McIlvenna Bay in October of 2025. Overall construction reached 72%, reflecting strong and efficient execution. Program remains on schedule for mid-2026 commercial production and on budget. So this is great to hear because they'll actually start producing, I would think, in the first quarter and have it up to commercial production by the second quarter or at the end of the second quarter. They talk about their key achievements from the month of October. I advise you to read all of that. Please do. As you know, I always like everybody to be well informed. Dan Myerson, who's the executive chairman and CEO of Foran, commented, and I quote, Reaching 72% completion is a very meaningful milestone for our team and speaks to the steady progress underway across the entire project. Month after month, we are delivering on our development objectives, advancing major surface and underground infrastructure, and building real momentum as we move towards first production next year. What we are seeing on site today is the result of many decades of hard and meticulous work and a clear plan that is being executed with discipline. And every milestone achieved brings us closer to introducing a new copper, zinc, gold, and silver asset at a pivotal moment for the global metals supply. As we enter the final phases of construction, our sole focus remains on driving high quality and safe execution while thereby positioning the mine to create lasting value for our communities, our shareholders, and Canada. This is impressive because not only are they doing a great job at bringing the mine into production and placing it in a position to go up the right side of the Lassonde curve, they've also been doing some great exploration work lately. And so that is the Foran story on their news. Let's look at their stock chart. Um, this one is not, I picked them when they were down here at about $2. I think the price was 275 when I picked them. They're now trading at $3.91. What's driving that performance and their recent golden cross with a spectacularly bullish 50-day moving average trajectory is the success that they're having in bringing the McIlvenna Bay project into production, plus the exploration drilling results that they're getting. Company is on a very good trajectory for becoming a miner of the metals that was in the quote by their CEO. And yeah, I love finding these companies when they're late in the development discount window of the Lassonde curve, just before they turn into a new miner. I've done it multiple times in my career, and this is the latest and greatest, if you will, folks, for that category of company. And there you go. That's the Foran story. Okay, now I got to get my computer to cooperate with me. Hold on a second. Okay, Aris Mining. I already showed you their stock chart, so I'm just going to go through their news. So they had a couple last week. Aris Mining and the government of Colombia reached long-term agreement focused on security and sustainability to end the ICSID arbitration. I think you should have a look at that. And then they also announced that Aris Mining to acquire remaining 49% of Soto Norte, securing 100% ownership, advancing a clear path to 1 million ounce per year of production. Um, Neil Woodyer is their CEO, and he stated, and I quote, let me hide that, with 100% ownership of Segovia, Marmato, and Toro Paru, and now Soto Norte, Aris Mining has scaled to a point where our buy and build strategy naturally shifts to a clear focus on building. Backed by a portfolio of high quality projects, a strong financial position, and robust operating cash flows from our existing mines, we now have a diversified, fully owned pipeline toward becoming a 1 million ounce per year producer. Importantly, our recent settlement agreement with the government of Colombia underscores how collaboration is essential to advancing major projects in the country and reinforces the strong foundation for long-term success. So they've got a great mine already in production called Segovia. It's a free cash flow machine. Marmato, also in Colombia, will be as well, as will Soto Norte. So they've got the platform to build into a much larger mid tier. And Neil Woodyear, this isn't his first rodeo, folks. He's done this before. And I think that this will be his next big success and quite possibly his swan song. I don't want to call his retirement ahead of him, but I think that this one is definitely has a chance to be his next great success. That's for sure. Um, and they talk about all the details here. The company's sitting on a mountain of cash. They're making free cash on a spectacular rate, and really one you should take a look at. Aris, I already did their stock chart. Okay, next up is Newfound Gold. Newfound Gold announces infill and expansion drilling at the K2 zone Queensway Gold Project. That's in Newfoundland. Look at some of these hits: 16.7 grams over 12.25 meters, 5.32 grams over 18.85 meters, 4.17 grams over 18 meters. And by the way, folks, this is in open pit targets. That's extremely high grade for an open pit project. More good results there. Melissa Renders, the president of Newfound Gold, she stated, and I quote, infill drilling of the AFZC Phase 1 open pits at K2 and Jackpot at Queensway continue to demonstrate good continuity of gold mineralization and a good correlation with the initial MRE. As part of this phase of our 2025 campaign, we drilled deeper than previously tested limits of the mineralization at K2. We're encouraged to encounter a broad interval of gold mineralization, highlighting the zone's potential for expansion to depth. Now, they are currently building a mine here, and here is the design pits that will go after the high grade material inside of these known zones. But what's also exciting is this Appleton fault zone that's responsible for this whole gold mineralizing system is wide open on both the western side of it and the eastern side of it. And this only represents a couple kilometers. And I think the entirety of their package is somewhere like 70 kilometers of that Appleton fault. And as you can see, where they focused their first few years of drilling, it's all juiced up on either side of that Appleton fault. They are going to be the next great gold miners in Newfoundland. Equinox is sort of breaking ground with a 5 million ounce gold system. I think that these guys will ultimately have more of that, more than that, and it will be in production for decades. They're really focused on bringing it into production and doing advanced drilling. And so that combination puts them in a really good position for growth. Now let's have a look at their stock chart. As you can see, they had their low of 2025 down here at about a dollar 40-ish. I picked them just before they went through this golden cross. They're doing very well since then. They got a lot of great things on the go and recent acquisitions, a whole bunch of drilling and development to bring the project into production. And I think you're going to see a lot of great things out of Newfound Gold as they move everything forward. Azimut, I've followed Azimut. They've been on my radar screen for a long time, but this one really caught my attention. Azimut identifies visible gold in 11 drill holes on the Rosa Zone, Wabamisk project in James Bay, Quebec. They talk about visible gold in more than 40% of the holes drilled into this new target. The Rosa Zone discovered by prospecting this summer. So this is brand new drilling into a grassroots discover a greenfields discovery. 11 of the 26 holes displayed visible gold. Those assays are pending, so keep an eye on that. Taken together, the downhole VG occurrences preliminarily preliminarily define an east-west striking envelope measuring 200 meters long by 100 meters wide. And that's early days, folks. They got to do a whole lot more work on it to really understand it. But I'm going to be watching this very closely because I love to see this. Um, oh, here, so okay. So what got them underway was they did some surface channel sampling and got very high grades. As you can see, 23 grams over 3 meters, 45 grams over 1 meter, 21 grams, 3.79, 30 grams, 9, 1, 93 grams. And so then they drilled underneath it and they're finding visible gold. This is a very good developing story. I'll be watching it closely. Let's take a look at their stock chart. E Azimut. It's in Quebec, by the way. And had a golden cross back here in late June. Um, yeah, let's see how those assay results come out. If they come out with anything good, I think you're going to see a big move in this stock price. So put it on your radar screen. Okay, Abitibi Metals. They had very good intersection, intersects 17.91% copper equivalent. That included in that was 13.48% copper and 5.15 grams per ton of gold over 6.3 meters, within 6.93% copper equivalent over 19 meters in the Western Zone expansion. Look at that beautiful sulfides there that generated that high grade material, 29.2% copper equivalent, just loaded with sulfides. Same thing in this hole, another hole loaded up with sulfides, 24.53% copper equivalent. Now, I have to caution you that this is 976 meters down hole, okay? So it's not shallow, but get rid of this. I've already signed up to your email list. Here is the known zone, okay, on a plan view. So we're looking from the top down, and here's the side view. Okay, so these blue zones are your high grade zinc. This is a what's called a VMS deposit. So this is your high grade zinc, and here is your high grade copper in these warmer colors here, these shades of pink. And as you can see, they got a lot of it. And the really juiciest stuff is down here where they have not very many holes. So who knows how it progresses down here. Maybe it fans out to over here and keeps on going. They got to do more drilling to understand more about this. Same thing can be said about these two zones over here. Yeah, at those grades, you can underground mine that. Look at these beautiful intersections of massive sulfides here, just lit up beautifully. Okay, so that is the Abitibi metals story. I'm going to have to hurry up here. Southern Cross Gold drills 9.2 meters of 32.2 grams per ton of gold and 1% antimony from their Golden Dike. Some beautiful drill holes in there. Michael Hudson, who's the president and CEO, he always makes really good quotes that put things into context. This is a pick of mine. I like what they've got. I advise you to read this whole news release because it is an eye opener. Yeah, that's the Southern Cross Gold. West Red Lake Gold, which is a brand new pick of mine. West Red Lake reports mid Q4 Madsen mine update. The big thing out of this is that they did about 7,000. Sounds like they're going to get somewhere around 7,000 ounces in their final quarter of 2025 as they ramp this up into commercial production starting in January, February of 2026. And that's getting very close to their 50,000. You know, they're still ramping it up, so they'll get to about 12,500 ounces per quarter or somewhere, let's say 10 to 12,500 ounces per quarter. And that's why I picked the company. I really impressed with how it's progressing for the Madsen mine restart. And yeah, have a look at that news release. That's another good one. Northisle announces continued growth of West Goodspeed target to over 1.2 kilometers of strike length. High grade interval, 1.16 copper equivalent over 39 meters, within 93 meters, grading 0.77% copper equivalent. This is from a open pit target. Sam Lee, who's the president and CEO, stated, and I quote, "Today's results from West Goodspeed have further expanded the footprint of mineralization at West Goodspeed target. Work now has now commenced to bring West Goodspeed into the mineral inventory on the project, which will support our planned pre-feasibility study. Our exploration team is now focused on executing a comprehensive infill drilling program while advancing the exploration thesis for this overall property." I think there's a map in here that shows the various different zones that they're either have resources on or are prospects or they're drilling to expand on. One of the prospects is Pemberton Hills. West Goodspeed is a prospect that's turning into a something that they'll do a resource on. Hushamu is one of the resources. Red Dog and Northwest Expo. They believe that they have a whole corridor making up a district scale project here, that they're kind of focusing on what they know, and then they'll do the preliminary economic assessment and then start doing their exploration drilling as well. Northisle has got a really great story, lots of copper in the system, as well as gold, and yeah, really well run company, a lot of great things in their future. Okay, Norsemont, first drill hole commenced and second drill rig has arrived at the Choque Limpe project. This is in Chile. Chile has recently had some statements out by their mines minister who's saying that they are going to increase or decrease the time by 75% to permit exploration and new mines in Chile. Chile is a very important source of copper and other minerals, and they're getting more and more mining friendly with some of the new politicians that are running things. This is the phase 3 exploration drill program on their 100% owned Choque Limpe high sulfidation gold, silver, copper project in northern Chile has been collared. That drilling is now underway. They're targeting high grade gold mineralization hosted in the Vizcacha hydrothermal breccia. I love these breccia projects for two reasons. One, breccias on their own can make great mines in these kind of geological settings, but they can also lead you to the porphyry where that gold that's up at the surface in the breccia pipe as well as in the zones. They've got about 2 million ounces in the 2.5 million ounces in the resource. That's the resources contained within the first 70 meters of surface. Part of it's oxide, part of it's sulfide. I'm bullish on both because in the sulfides, even though it's categorized as sulfides, a lot of the gold, let's say maybe 70% of the gold is attached to sulfides. It's not encased in sulfides. And so in that kind of an environment, you can use other metal or other mining methods to extract the gold easily from the attachment to the sulfides. Comes down to crushing, flotation, gravity, these sort of things, instead of needing what's called a roaster or an autoclave, where you basically have to cook that material up to turn the sulfides into oxides. It's complicated, but they've got a great sulfide resource on this project, with these excellent characteristics of the gold being attached to, not encased in, sulfides. Okay, so they're talking about 5,000 meters utilizing two diamond drill rigs, with drilling scheduled to continue through late December. Um, the one hole is going after the Vizcacha hydrothermal breccia, oriented at an azimuth of 275 degrees. So 360 would get you almost to 10 o'clock on a clock, included at 70-degree angle, and has a target depth of 225 meters. I hope that if they're in good material, that they extend that well beyond 225 meters. They got a great geologist looking at that core. His name's Dave Flint. So I think if he sees some juicy numbers, he'll tell the guys in the head office, well, we're going to drill that a little bit deeper, boys. It's going designed to explore the Vizcacha zone to depth below the area where grades have been calculated within the April 2025 resource model. Mark Levy, who's the CEO, commented, and I quote, "We are very excited to color the first hole of the phase three drilling program at Choque Limpe, where our recent work has highlighted significant potential for higher grade gold zones at depth beneath the current resource and along strike. This potential high impact hole will test previously indicated higher grade mineralization hosted in the Vizcacha hydrothermal breccia. We're also nearing completion of the engineering report on our 3,000 ton per day plant and expect to deliver an update on our near-term production strategy this quarter," end quote. Um, I want to note some things. I've done a lot of homework and I've consulted with their geologists, talked to them a bunch about the past drilling. And these are the zones that are known that have not been mined. There has been past production on this, and all of these resources are contained within the first 70 meters. But these are hydrothermal breccias on the property. The resources around those. Now, almost all the drilling on this project has been vertical. All right. Now, in these epithermal vein systems, they come from vertical. And so if you drill a vertical hole, it's not the best way to get an understanding of the entire resource. Angled holes cutting across several of these vertical veins is the best way. And that's what they're planning on doing. Like at Vizcacha, think of a cylinder or a cone sitting at depth. They drilled vertical holes into this, shallow ones, and one deeper one that was vertical. Now, that's not the best way. If, say, you had a cylinder or a cone and you drilled off the edge of the cone, you're only going to get a little bit of the cone, and the rest of it's maybe 25 meters over from where you drilled. And so the way to attack that is inside the cone, you go with these angled holes that cut across it instead of going down beside it or just at the top of it, and with vertical holes. So past drilling has not been optimized. Dave Flint has come in. Dave Flint is an extremely talented geologist. He was part of the discovery team for the Grasberg mine, one of the world's great mines. He worked at BHP for 15 years, extremely talented geologist. I have a lot of confidence that he will do a great job at drilling at Vizcacha and these other hydrothermal breccias, as well as drilling to understand the zones. Like there's hardly any drilling in between this area that was mined and is still open and this Vizcacha area. And so lots of room to grow that resource. In fact, I think they could dramatically like double it or more very easily by doing angled optimized drilling instead of vertical drilling into vertically emplaced veins. And so, and the vertical breccia pipes. And as I said earlier, what excites me about the breccia pipes is not only can they make mines on their own, but they can lead them to the porphyry that it likely juiced up this entire system. And in fact, if you look at, I'm going to outline something here. So there's an outline, and this whole area, and we're talking about a very large area, let's say maybe 2 kilometers this way by 3 kilometers this way. This is a domed package of rocks. And there's a very good chance that the reason it was domed is because there's a porphyry below that pushed those rocks up. And so this whole area, as well as a long strike in both directions, is wide open for exploration. So great project. Started drilling. Stay tuned for more. And that's the Norsemont story. I might as well look at their stock before I go. Got enough time here. It's becoming a pretty long show, but lots of great stuff to talk about. So, yeah, Norsemont has had its Golden Cross, the important one back here when they were trading at about 13 cents, had a nice run, gave back some of the gains, went sideways, and have broken out since they really started to get the word out about the company and what they're doing. And now that they got drilling underway, I think they got a great chance for a significant breakout. Alrighty, folks. As always, I'm only an idea generator. I don't make buying or selling recommendations. I'm merely trying to use my experience of 32 years in the exploration business, having been mentored by great people in geology, geophysics, and geochemistry, to give you a list of companies that you can do your homework on, you can speak with your financial advisors about. And I always emphasize that do the homework part because I think informed investors are the best investors, and that's what you should be, in my opinion. So have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.